Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Right on Crime podcast. Right on Crime is a national campaign of the Texas Public Policy Foundation that supports conservative solutions for reducing crime, restoring victims, reforming offenders, and lowering taxpayer costs. My name is Britt Allen, and joining us today is someone I'm really excited to talk to. It's Right on Crime's very own Prosecutorial Innovation and Arizona Director, Kurt Altman. Hey, Kurt.
Good morning, Britt. Thanks for having me.
Good morning.
It's crazy being in Austin. Always fun.
It is always fun. I know it's about as hot here as it is in Arizona. Well, maybe it's a little bit different.
It is never as hot anywhere as it is in Arizona. I can promise you.
Fair enough.
No, it's pretty bad, though. It's pretty bad. Arizona's kind of brutal right now because we have a little humidity. It feels like Texas, but a lot hotter.
Okay, so kindred spirits. We totally understand the humidity game. We don't like it, but, you know, it is what it is. Well, welcome to Austin. We're excited that you're here. Thanks for joining us. We know you're extremely busy. So there's a lot we want to talk about, so I want to jump right in. Tell me a little bit about your story and your professional background. Like, how did you start your career and end up here at Right on Crime?
Wow. Like all major life decisions, I just decided to go to law school one day. And when I got out of law school, I had this wide open 50-state, area that I could take the bar in. I went to law school in North Carolina, and I, like every intelligent, well thought out decision, I said, I'm going to take the bar exam in Arizona.
That sounds well thought out.
Yeah. So I did. Took the bar exam in Arizona. Passed the bar exam and started practicing law. My first job in Colorado, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, go figure, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But was in Colorado for a little while and ended up pretty quickly after that in Arizona at the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, which is what we call the District Attorney's Office, which is the prosecutor's office in Arizona. So it was kind of a roundabout way to get there, but I got there.
And then from there to Right on Crime, what does that jump look like?
Oh man, so I was at the county prosecuting cases for about, I guess, 6 or 7 years. I'd left for a little while and became for a short time had a cup of coffee in the FBI. Came back to the county where I did. Ultimately, I was doing homicide prosecutions. In the last year I was there, I think I tried, not handled, but tried 11 or 12 actual homicide cases. Kind of wears you out.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And went from there to the U.S. Attorney's Office as an assistant U.S. attorney for about 6 or 7 years.
Wow. So tell me a little bit more about assistant U.S. attorney. That's a title that I feel like we don't really talk about as much, with all these titles that throw around in this political environment we live in. Right. So tell me a little bit about what that experience was like.
It was in many ways very similar to being a state prosecutor, but very different as well. But we prosecuted as an AUSA federal crimes. And I worked in Arizona, so we had the federal district there is called the District of Arizona. It's the entire state. So any federal prosecutions within the District of Arizona, we handled. And I think the office had probably, when I was there, 60 assistants, 50 to 60 while I was there. And I did a lot of initially violent crimes because Arizona is encompassed a lot by Indian reservations. And they're kind of like state reactive crimes, except they're federal because they take place on the reservation. And I moved into major drug and drug gang homicides, drug gang and violent crimes associated with those drug gangs internationally, and did a little white collar as well, but mostly the drug gang, what they called OCDF prosecutions for a long time.
Wow. So what I'm hearing is you've got a lot of stories you could probably share.
I get a lot of stories. Some are really, really, really awful. And it's funny. I don't know if it's funny, but I talk about them like they, just happened and it's not that big a deal, like at a cocktail party or something. And it's routine to me. And when I look up and see people's faces, they're usually like, and I'm like, oh, sorry about that. Yeah, let's go have another drink.
Yeah, I'm usually the receiving end of that story, making that face whenever I talk to you or anybody else on the team. So is there a story that you can think of that just happens to come to mind that you feel is really formative in your career?
I mean, I think there's lots. I'm going to tell you something. I know we talked beforehand about a federal prosecution, and that's probably what you think I'm going to say, but something that has stuck with me. It's the weirdest little thing.
Okay.
That has stuck with me from the time I was a young prosecutor. When I was a young prosecutor in the state, we used to go to what we called in Arizona, still called justice courts, where we would do felony preliminary hearings. And our goal there was to move these cases. They were lower level felonies. You wanted to plead them out, get them out because we're so busy. Maricopa County, Phoenix, had about 250 prosecutors at the time. So very busy. And what really struck me about how the criminal justice system affects people was one day, it's in the summertime, I'm in South Phoenix Justice Court, I can still see it. It's hot, we're running back and forth between courts, we're talking to people, we're trying to move cases. And there's a victim there. I had a car theft. Car theft, no big deal, like happens probably 1,000 times a day, unfortunately, in Phoenix. And so as a prosecutor, you're like, not a big deal moving it. And you have to remember everything's a big deal to people. And I can remember that day, somebody goes, a victim's here. And I'm like, what? For a car theft. And I walk out, and there's this probably 75, 80-year-old guy. Goes, it was my car. Like, I got this piece of paper said I was supposed to come to court. And I'm like, oh, well, you didn't have to come, but thanks for coming. I talked to him about the case. And I'm like, hey, we're going to plead this guy to this. We're going to move the case. He's going to get probation. And he's going to be ordered to pay restitution and stuff like that. And he goes, well, when do I get my car back? And I'm like, well, you're probably not going to get your car back. I think they found at the river bottom something. And he goes, what? Well, I thought I'm supposed to get my car back. I go, you're not going to get your car back probably. And then all of a sudden something clicked in me because I'm hurrying. I'm like, this is not somebody I need to hurry with. And he goes, well, what am I going to do? Just like that, and almost started to tear up.
Yeah.
And it was that moment that I still remember, God, I probably had been prosecuting for 6 months, and that has always stuck with me. I can still see the guy's face, and I'm like, man, even the smallest things in the criminal justice system have a significant impact on people. So that's kind of like, it made me think every single time, whether a prosecutor, now I'm a defense lawyer, every single case is important to somebody. And it's hard sometimes because you're so busy.
Yeah. What I would say is really special about you and really everybody on our team, I would say, is everybody makes jokes about lawyers and attorneys, and it's all in good fun. However, what I would say is really special about you guys is y'all never seem to forget that there is a person behind every case, and it really shows in the work that you do. And it really does make all the difference. That's such a great story, and I love that you learned it so early on.
Yeah. And I mean, I still, I think about it literally all the time. I teach school at ASU Law School. I haven't for a semester or so. I don't tell this story, but I tell people what you just said. I'm like, the law is absolutely 100% a human business, and you cannot forget that no matter how busy you are. And it's hard sometimes because you're busy. Prosecutors are busy. Defense lawyers are busy. Policy people doing criminal justice are busy. Legislators too, are busy, but you can't forget why you're doing it. And unfortunately, sometimes that really is lost.
Yeah. I could sit here and talk to you about your background and hear stories forever, but I also want to get to specifically your state and talk a little bit about policy and the work that you've been doing. So, in the criminal justice system, we know that every state does things that are really, really great, and we also know that there's gaps and opportunities for improvement. So in Arizona, what do you feel like you guys do really well when it comes to the criminal justice system?
Well, I think our system is for the system that it is pretty large. It's pretty efficient for what it is. It really is. Maricopa County, I was just talking about this in a different context the other day, has, I think, 68%, 70% of the voting population. So, it's 70% of the state's population, Maricopa County, which is Phoenix and surrounding areas. So that's the busiest prosecutor's office. And they put, I just picked up a case, I think it's July, and I think the case number is 21,000. CR 2024, 21,000. So we're at 21,000 cases filed already, in the year. So with that, they're pretty efficient. Now, do things happen that I disagree with? Is justice not always done? I mean, I think it does the best job it can. So in that respect, I think Arizona and the other counties, which are growing, do a good job. There are certainly vast opportunities for criminal justice advances. I like to say advances instead of reform.
I like that. I like advances.
Because reform, everybody goes, in Arizona. The biggest thing is kind of downfall. Arizona still fluctuates between 35,000 to 49,000 people incarcerated in prison in the Department of Corrections a year. It goes back and forth. It's down now, and we have a new DOC director who's really, I think, really committed to getting it down. But there are a lot of things that could be done. Arizona still is a truth in sentencing state. If you get 1 year sentence in prison, you serve 85% of that year. If you get 20 years in prison, you serve 85% of that year, no matter what you do while you're in there. And it really, I feel like there's really no incentive to kind of grow while you're in prison and any opportunities, because you can sit there in prison, do nothing, and you serve 85%. You could get a college degree, you could work, you could, save somebody on the yard, you could learn CPR, right. You do 85%. So I do think a big area that Arizona can grow in is to kind of move away from that truth in sentencing and start working on earned release time.
Yeah.
To give folks, because these people are coming out, right, to give folks incentive while they're in.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense, and we'll be looking forward to all the work that you do in changing that part of the system. Yeah, we'll keep trying, and we never stop trying.
We never stop.
And I want to talk to you a little bit about prosecutorial innovation, because you are our director for that front here at Right on Crime. There was a quote in one of your past podcasts that said, "There is a difference between an innovative prosecutor and a prosecutor who is attempting to erode the rule of law." So talk to me a little bit more about this issue. What are you seeing these days when it comes to prosecutors who are maybe implementing blanket policies that maybe violate their oath of office and compromise on ethics?
Well, first of all, was that my quote? Because that's awful, high level.
It was
for me.
I mean, you're pretty high level, man. It might have been you.
It's a little bit surprising. No, obviously, I still think I don't walk into this system and walk into prosecutors' offices and say that our system's terrible in America, it needs to change. It's still the best. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's got its flaws. That's why we do this. But it's still the best. And I look for, in this program, prosecutors out there, like elected DAs that are willing and have the guts, really, to do something innovative and different to keep their communities safe. I think everybody knows, every prosecutor that's elected knows, we'd like to have less people in prison. Sometimes you have to put people in prison to keep your community safe, but man, can we keep them safe and have less people in prison? And that's what makes me optimistic. That's what prosecutors are starting to do around the country. Look for these alternative things like diversion programs. I talked to Rob Sanders from Kentucky on one of my podcasts, heart programs. It takes people that aren't violent and gives them an opportunity to be held accountable in the system, but get out of it and keep the community safe. That's different than prosecutors that go, we're just not going to prosecute these cases, because when you do that, there's no accountability. You have to hold people accountable, but you have to understand too, and this is probably an oft-used phrase, but they're redeemable as well. So accountability, redemption, and that's what the innovative prosecutors are doing. They're like, hey, we can do something different. Maybe I don't need to give you a felony that's going to scar you and wear that scarlet F for the rest of your life and make it harder to get a job. But we're not going to just say we're not going to prosecute the case and let you go. We're going to do something else. And that takes, a lot of work. That takes a lot of guts. And frankly, it has to work in today's TikTok, Instagram age fast, because it's a perception out there. Because in order for an elected prosecutor, I'm going to talk to Eric Zahn, good friend of mine, here in a few minutes, to keep doing it, they have to keep getting reelected. So they have to answer to the public as well. And, it's real easy to say on TikTok or Twitter, this is terrible, this guy got out of prison and hurt somebody, and then that's the perception. So you have to manage that. So it's difficult. But I think the people that are willing to innovate deserve our support. Yeah.
No, Kurt, I love talking to you. I know it's an Aristotle quote, but I like to say it's from my favorite movie, Legally Blonde. The law is reason free from passion. And I don't believe that, because every time I get to talk to you or anybody else on our team, you guys are so passionate about what you do, and you guys are creating so much change in the criminal justice system and for the better. So I thank you for joining us today. If anybody wants to keep up with you or your work, where can they find you?
Well, they can obviously find me on Right on Crime's website, which is www.rightoncrime.com, right?
Yep.
But you can also go to my website, which is altmanaz.com, www.altmanaz.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Kurt. And thank you guys for joining us again for the Right on Crime podcast. To reach out to our team or to learn more about these issues, visit our website at rightoncrime.com or follow us on social media. Thanks again.